So let's look at how to prepare buffer solutions in the lab. So you get to the lab, you want to prepare buffer solution. Now, the very first thing you have to note when preparing buffer solution is the composition of that buffer, the composition of the buffer. So we already know that buffer solutions contains weak acid and what? Conjugate base. Conjugate base. So you know the type of buffer you want to make. Now, get the weak acid and the conjugate base. Then you can start with any of them. You can start with the weak acid. You measure a predetermined concentration. So you take that part, the concentration of the weak acid. Let's say what you are using is acetic acid. You measure it out, and after that you can add the conjugate base or the salt. The conjugate base here will be this, right? Because if it loses hydrogen ion, you get this, right? Or the salt, sodium ethanoate. Good. Now, after adding the conjugate base to this, you measure the pH with a pH meter. We have different types of pH meter. If you go to the lab here, you see the two. In this lab here, we have two of them. pH meter, the one that is like pen pH meter, that you just remove this, put the electrode inside, dip it inside, and you see the pH will be read out. And there's one that looks like a colorimeter. You have to plug it to electricity, then you dip the electrode inside. All right, but you check the pH. Then if the pH is not what you want, the pH of this mixture now is not what you want, you can add strong acid or strong base. Then test the pH again. You keep on testing the pH until it gets to a pH you want. Then after that, you can add water to get the concentration you want. Now, what if you have only the acid, the weak acid, and you want to make buffer? What do you do? What do you do? If you have only weak acid and you want to make buffer, what do? You don't have the conjugate base. You add water. Okay, she said if you add water, what will happen? If you add water to this acid, what will happen now? Conjugate base is formed, right? Now look at this. If you add, this is the acid plus water, what will happen? What will be formed? How is the water formed? We have plus what? Conjugate base, right? Remember, this is the same thing as hydrogen ion, right? This hydronium ion, but it's same thing as hydrogen ion. Then the conjugate base is formed. So if you are adding water to it, you've gotten your conjugate base. So you can get your conjugate base from there. So if you don't have the conjugate base, what if you have only conjugate base and you want to get the acid? What do? You still add water, right? Because if you have only the conjugate base and you add water, you form the acid plus what? The acid plus what now? OH minus, right? Alright, so in this case, if you want to prepare buffers in the lab, get your acid, the weak acid, and the conjugate base. You can mix them together, but you measure the concentration. Then after that, you measure the pH. If the pH is what you want, you're okay. But if the pH is higher than what you want, what do? If the pH is higher than what you want, what do? What will you add? No. If the pH is higher than what you want, what do? If you want to reduce the pH, what do? Do you add acid or you add base? If you want to reduce the pH, what do? The pH of the solution you've made. You can add small amount of strong acid. Remember the pH scale, 0 to 7 to what? And this side, we say acid strength increases this way, right? And basic strength increases this way. It means if you are adding acid, the pH will be reducing, right? Because the lower the pH, the more acidic it is. Something is of pH of 1 and pH of 6. Which one is more acidic? 1, right? The lower the pH, the more acidic it is. The higher the pH, the more basic it is. So basically, if you are to prepare a buffer in the lab, acid, weak acid, conjugate base, join them together, measure the pH. If it is not what you want, if you want to reduce the pH, you add acid, right? Strong acid, and measure again. If you want the pH to be high, you add what? Strong base, right? And you measure. So basically, this is how to prepare buffer solutions in the lab. Any question?